Welcome to Stoa Conversations. My name is Caleb Ontiveros, and today we'll do a solo episode. I'll be reading through and discussing a letter from the Stoa letter entitled Stoic Empathy, the True Meaning of Socratic Intellectualism. It's a short letter. What I'll do is read through it and then expand on it. It's about a crucial concept, one that doesn't always come to mind when we think about Stoicism today, and also one that I think is one of the most difficult ones to keep in mind and to apply in a consistent way and to internalize in a deep way. But it's a powerful one, both in terms of how we relate to others and how we relate to ourselves. Here it is. One of the most difficult Stoic teachings for me to internalize is Socratic intellectualism. The simple idea is that no one intentionally does wrong. People do wrong out of ignorance, not evil. Epictetus summarizes it perfectly in his discourses. When then any man assents to that which is false, be assured that he did not intend to assent to it as false, for every soul is unwillingly deprived of the truth, as Plato says. Can then a man think that a thing is useful to him and not choose it? He cannot. In other words, everyone does what they believe is best. No one desires evil for its own sake. This opens up space for empathy. Stoic empathy means understanding of the human condition. We're confused and imperfect creatures. We can't expect other people to do what we believe is right. We then should sympathize with others, even those who treat us poorly. They are not happy. Like Marcus Aurelius reminding himself in Meditations 2.1, we must be prepared to meet with ignorant people. They don't know how to do good. Nonetheless, we're made to live with them. This doesn't mean we should fail to be assertive or just. Rather, it means that our actions should begin from gentleness, not anger. Other people do not deserve to be harmed because they harmed us. Instead, our immediate reaction should be one of kindness, resourcefulness, and wisdom. This is what a virtuous disposition looks like. After all, we can remember that we also do wrong because we're often mistaken too. We aren't much better than other people. We shouldn't be angry with them or ourselves. Instead, work to improve. So that's a short letter then on Socratic intellectualism. If you'd like one missive, one letter like this a week, do check out stoaletter.com. To go into more detail, this idea, Socratic intellectualism, of course, comes from Socrates. It's one way in which Stoicism shows itself to be a Socratic philosophy. Socrates believed that people desire to do what is good. Or to state that more precisely, Socrates believed that people only desire to do what they believe is good. So, as such, he denied the possibility that someone could act from weakness of will. So weakness of will, that's the idea that you've determined a certain course of action to be good or best, all things considered, but decide to do something different. You lack the motivation. In the moment, whatever it is, you choose the path that you believe is not best. Also called akrasia, which means the lack of self-power, lack of self-will. It's an instance of someone failing to master themselves, failing to rule themselves properly, this weakness of will. And though, of course, the Stoics and Socrates know that situations like this can occur, ultimately, they do not see it as a matter of weakness of will. Instead, they believe what's going on is, in these situations, we do what we believe is best, but for whatever reason, we look back on those actions and realize that we acted poorly or acted in a way we wish we had not. So, just to go into more detail into that, we do have a longer episode on weakness of will. That's episode 35. And but we should go into more detail here. I think it's some people find this idea intuitive, others don't. But it's a common situation to, perhaps be stuck in bed, be faced with an addiction, and think, I ought to get out of bed, or I ought not take or do whatever thing I'm addicted to, and feel as though we believe that such an action that staying in bed would be worse for us. Taking that substance, doing that, whatever we happen to be addicted to, would be worse for us, but end up doing it nonetheless. So I think what the Stoics say here is a better way to explain these situations is that we have two competing beliefs sometimes. So maybe you truly don't believe, all things considered, that a given route is best. Maybe you think it's better not to partake in my addiction because it'll have worse consequences, but that's a fairly limited belief. It's consistent with other beliefs, such as the fact that engaging in my addiction will cease powerful craving. Also true, and perhaps that belief wins a competition, as it were, and is what you think, all things considered, is a stronger belief. Alternatively, people also have weak beliefs, and I think one way to think about that is if you truly believe at a given moment that it would be imprudent or irrational for you to do something, but when that moment arrives, the belief falls away. And I think that reveals that the belief was weak in a real sense. It didn't transform into a full belief, or the scope of it again was limited. And I think also people just act in ways where they don't realize what they're doing, and it's maybe even less a matter of belief, but much more a matter of giving into passions. Of course, passions driven by judgments. They are driven by judgments, but we're not always aware of the passions at play, other than thinking in the moment, it's better for me to indulge in my passion, whether that's anger, desire for pleasure, laziness, lethargy. And to see this, the Epictetus gives a nice example of this in the rest of Discourses 1.28. He talks about the mythical case of Medea. And Medea is a character who decides to kill her children because she's been betrayed by Jason. So she kills the two of their children, and is represented in many tellings as knowing. Well, this is how Epictetus puts it. Medea's words are, "'Tis true, I know what evil I shall do, but passion overpowers the better counsel." Epictetus continues, "She thought that to indulge her passion and take vengeance on her husband was more profitable than to spare her children. It was so, but she was deceived. Show her plainly that she is deceived, and she will not do it. But so long as you do not show it, what can she follow except that which appears to herself? Her opinion, nothing else. Why then are you angry with the unhappy woman that she has been bewildered about the most important things, and has become a viper instead of a human creature? And why not, if it is possible, rather pity as we pity the blind and the lame, so those who are blinded and maimed in the faculties which are supreme?" Of course, the metaphor here is quite literal. Medea cannot see the truth of the matter. And because of that, she believes that the best action is one that is in fact wrong. And that's why it's a tragedy, of course. And that's why so many other mistakes are tragic. So that goes into a little bit more detail on weakness of will and how it's related to Socratic intellectualism. This idea that the simple idea that we do what we believe is best. That means that weakness of will is impossible. It means that people, including ourselves, make mistakes, act wrongly out of ignorance, not out of, say, a pure desire to do evil. And it's also connected to the Stoic argument for virtue, where if you think about, Stoics believe virtue is what is ultimately important. And in part, one of their key arguments for that is that virtue is always good, and that they're looking for something that's unconditionally good. Virtue is what fits that bill, what fits that description. And of course, the question is, well, why are they looking for the unconditional good? It's because they see humans as doing what they believe as good all the time. And hence, you want to, as a human, as a rational creature, ensure that your belief about what is good maps onto what is good all the time in every situation. And that's, I think, another connection here about why the Stoics sort of think this way. You think about how the system sort of comes together and is connected to this idea of Socratic intellectualism and the importance of the belief that virtue is always good, and the importance of their ethics, and how their ethics maps onto their psychology. So that's just a little bit more detail on that letter. I think a great place to end is with another instance that I mentioned in a letter of the Socratic intellectualism in action, and that's, of course, Marcus Aurelius's Book 2, Part 1. So I'll read that out from the George Long translation. Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and social. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. But I, who have seen the nature of the good, that it is beautiful, and of the bad, that it is ugly, and the nature of him who does wrong, that it is akin to me, not only of the same blood or seed, but that it participates in the same intelligence and the same portion of divinity. I can neither be injured by any of them, for no one can fix on me what is ugly, nor can I be angry with my kinsman, nor hate him. For we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another then is contrary to nature, and it is acting against one another to be vexed and to turn away. Thanks so much for listening, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Bye all. Thanks for listening to Stoic Conversations. Please give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and share it with a friend. If you want to dive deeper still, search Stoa in the App Store or Play Store for a complete app with routines, meditations, and lessons designed to help people become more stoic. And I'd also like to thank Michael Levy for graciously letting us use his music. You can find more of his work at ancientlyre.com. And finally, please get in touch with us. Send a message to stoa@stoameditation.com if you ever have any feedback, questions, or recommendations. Until next time.